So, hello. The class we're going to do today is a gentle experience. So we'll be doing a little bit of sort of slow flow stuff and then maybe some kind of yin poses and some restore poses. My aim is to offer without props, but if you like to have any blocks or blankets or cushions around you, then feel free to gather them up. I think the nice thing about this particular class that we might focus on is that it's an opportunity to just sort of really be in the sensation of the body. I feel like always, but especially right now, we're bombarded by a lot of information and we're trying to process a lot of information. And a lot of the information that's being thrown at us is specifically designed to make us feel fear. And so to get away from this kind of trying to understand intellectually what's happening in the world or what's happening in our immediate space, we can just get into sort of feeling like what is happening in my body and how can I work through that sensation in an emotional way rather than an intellectual way. So we'll see if we can start around the upper body where we typically have all of that busyness and work our way down towards the feet as a kind of grounding experience and as a way of getting more into the center of the body and maybe a little bit out of the head. So we're actually going to start standing today. You can come to the top of your mat and just find a kind of hip width stance, maybe even a little bit wider so that it's really steady. You can let your arms hang by your sides. We will take a moment in the low body and the feet to feel how we connect to the earth and how that connection allows us to start to lift away from the earth. You might reach your tailbone gently down towards your heels, find a little bit of lift in the rib cage, spread your shoulders nice and wide, and then closing your eyes, you start to turn your attention inwards. One of the first sensations that we might feel in the area of the head is the breath. Notice how your breath moves at the tip of your nose, along the path of your throat, and into the space of your chest. And then how the breath flows out along that same path. So we have the sensation in the throat, along the nose. There's kind of a whisper at the tip of the nose. And then we draw the next breath in. As you become more aware of sensation around the area of your breath, we can notice sensation in the face. We might notice where we're habitually holding, in the jaw, in the forehead, and the point between the eyes. We might allow more softness to enter into the area of the face. And also look for that softening quality in your throat, in the ribs, so that the breath might become a little bit more full. And then we'll see if we can place the head a little bit more specifically on the body so that it feels lighter. So the first thing we can do is to bring the hands to the top of the head, interlace the fingers so your palms are resting on the top of your head. And then we're just going to press up with the head into the palms and then also resist that reach with the palms themselves. So you're really gently pressing down with your palms as your head reaches up into your hands. And you start to feel the muscles of the neck become awake. It shouldn't feel like any kind of strain. The shoulders can be soft. I'm just holding that little bit of push and pull between the hands and the head. And continuing to find a really slow, steady rhythm in your breathing. And hold for a little bit longer. Again, the head reaching up into the hands and the hands just gently resisting that reach. Good, and then releasing your hands by your sides and just feel what happens with your head if it feels maybe a little bit more floaty. And then we'll take the hands to the back of the head, again, interlacing the fingers, so now the palms cup the back of the skull, your elbows can be relatively wide, and we find the same kind of resistance now by pressing the head into the hands, back into the hands, and the hands are resisting that pressure from the head so that the muscles around the back of the neck are a little bit more active And without any great sense of strain. Shouldn't feel like a hardening of the neck. Just gently waking up those muscles, feeling them come alive. And we're holding this little bit of pressure between the head and the hands, continuing to breathe really smoothly, seeing if we can let the heads of the shoulders be relatively soft. We'll take a few more deep, full breaths here. Good, and then releasing your hands back by your sides and feel where your head goes now, if it shifts back a little bit onto your body. So maybe we notice that the head is now more easefully rested exactly at the top of the spine. With your next inhale, you can reach your arms up alongside your ears. We'll interlace the fingers and press up through the palms. And then as you exhale, you can start to reach over to the right. So inviting some length now into the left shoulder, the left side waist. You can again angle your tailbone down towards your heels. Find a little bit of hug in the belly, so there's some support for the upper body here as you continue to reach over to the right. Good, and then we'll inhale to come back to center. Releasing the hands, you can now let your right elbow bend and your right hand drop behind the back. The left hand comes to the top of your right elbow. We're going to reach the right arm up into the left hand. So I'm finding some length specifically in the outer right shoulder. Maybe as you exhale, you can creep your right fingers down a little bit deeper down the back. Noticing if you're unintentionally back bending here, you might gently hug the front ribs together. So just kind of knitting those front ribs together, breathing a little bit more into the back of your body, feeling the breath expand your back ribs. Remembering that your breath can fill the whole three-dimensional space of your body, that your breath might provide room around the back of your heart. And then we'll inhale to reach the arms back up. And exhale to bring your arms forward about shoulder height. We're going to wrap the right arm over the left, bending the elbows. You can either bring your palms together or the backs of the hands together, or maybe just your hands to your shoulders. Seeing if you can send your elbows and maybe also your forearms forward away from your chest. So we find, again, that space around the back of the heart, the shoulder blades now really spreading wide on the back body. And lift your ribs up a little bit taller away from your hips. And then broaden the heads of the shoulders out away from your ears. So there's some room around your neck. See if you can lift your elbows and your fingers a little bit so that we're not hugging the elbows close to the chest, but rather finding space between the elbows and the chest. And then still let the heads of the shoulders soften out wide and breathe into that point between your shoulder blades. Good, and then we'll exhale to release the arms, bringing the hands now behind the back, interlace the fingers, taking both hands to your right side. So you can just kind of tuck your left hand into the right side waist, and then hug your elbows in towards each other. Again, noticing if you're back bending without meaning to. So you might find, again, that little bit of a knitting through the front ribs, more breath in the back ribs, lifting the ribs straight up out of the hips. Keep hugging the elbows in towards each other. And now we're going to lean the head towards the right. So we're leaning away from that arm that's wrapped around behind your back. And start to find more sensation along the left edge of your neck. And again, seeing if you can really feel your way through the subtleties of that sensation. Getting away from your thinking mind, your analytical mind. More towards just being in your body, being aware of what's happening in your body in the most minute detail. And we'll inhale to bring the head back towards center, releasing the hands from behind you. We'll inhale to reach the arms back up, interlacing the fingers, pressing up through your palms. And now as you exhale, you can reach over to the left. So finding that long space through your left sideways and into the outer left shoulder. And then a little bit of support from the core so that we have height in the spine, buoyancy in the ribs, tailbone reaching down, the belly drawing in. Maybe you can extend a little bit farther over to the left. And then we'll inhale to come back up to center, releasing the hands. Now dropping your left hand behind your head, so the left elbow bending, the right hand coming to the left elbow reaching up into the right hand. So you get more sensation along the outer left edge of the shoulder. And let the head of your left shoulder relax. And front ribs gently drawing in, breath in the back ribs, the ribs lifting straight up out of your hips. And maybe as you're exhaling, you're finding a little bit more ease so that you can creep your left fingers just slightly down the back. And then we'll inhale to reach the arms back up. Exhaling to bring your arms forward parallel to the floor. Now crossing your left arm over your right, we'll bend the elbows, bringing the palms together or the backs of the hands together or hands to your shoulders. And pressing the forearms in towards each other. Pressing your elbows forward, spreading the heads of the shoulders wide, finding that broad space in your upper back, breathing into that space. And then seeing once more if you can look for a little bit of lightness in your elbows and your fingertips so that there's space between your elbows and your chest without hunching the shoulders up around the ears. Still keep all of that relaxed quality around the neck and the tops of the shoulders. And noticing specifically where sensation arises, how we might breathe specifically into that sensation, how the breath might allow us to shape sensation so that rather than reacting to tension with more tension, we're able to process sensation of tension in the body and react instead with softness. And exhale to release your arms. We'll bring the hands again behind the back, interlacing the fingers, and now taking both of your hands to your left side waist, or just tucking the back of that right hand into the curve of the left waist, squeezing your elbows in towards each other, finding that straight up quality in your torso, so the ribs are lifting right up out of the hips, breath in the back body as much as the front body. And then as you keep squeezing those elbows together, maybe you can let your left ear drop towards the left shoulder, so that we can find that longer line through the right edge of the neck. And again, directing your breath exactly into the space where you feel the tug of that stretch. Maybe your breath can soften the edges of that sensation. And we'll inhale to come back to center, releasing the hands behind the back. Inhale to reach your arms up. At exhale, we'll bring the hands again around the back of the head, so interlacing the fingers. This time we're going to close the elbows in. So you can wrap your elbows close into each other, find a little bit more roundness in your upper back. And now as you exhale, you can start to lean your chin in towards your chest, and then continue that rounding through the length of the spine. So we'll let the upper back round, find some softness in your knees, and then start to let the mid back, the low back round out so that you can drape your torso over your thighs. You're coming into a nice heavy forward fold. And then we'll slowly roll back up, pressing down through the feet. You can inhale to begin lifting the spine. As you're coming up, legs straighten, tailbone reaches down, the belly draws in, the ribs lift, the heart lifts. Again, the elbows are hugging in. Point your elbows right up towards the ceiling and lean your head into your hands. Gentle back bend. Good, and then we'll slowly roll back down. So chin towards the chest as you begin your exhale. Look for that little bit of bend in your knees, maybe even a lot of bend in your knees as you start to round through the upper back, the mid back, the low back, draping your belly over your thighs, nice heavy forward fold, allowing the head to fall off the end of your spine. And then beginning with an inhale, pressing down through the feet, we'll roll back up to standing, coming up nice and slow again so that you have time to see how your spine feels, how each part of your spine moves, where there's any little stickiness that you might resolve, lifting the ribs, lifting the heart, and elbows close in, point your elbows up towards the ceiling, leaning your head into your hands, a little bit of a back bend. And then we'll bring the head back to center so that it's just kind of balanced right at the top of your spine. You let your arms drop by your sides. It'll inhale to reach the arms up tall. Exhale, folding forward, bringing the hands towards the floor. Inhale, coming to a half lift. Maybe hands to your shins if that's helpful. Exhale to empty the belly and sink back down. Let the head drop heavy off the end of the spine. Inhale, find that kind of half lift shape. So nice long spine. We'll reach the arms all the way back up to the ceiling. Nice full stretch. And then exhaling the hands to the center of the chest. Again, inhale to sweep the arms up, keeping the shoulders soft. Exhale, folding forward, bringing the hands towards the floor. Inhaling halfway up, lengthening through the spine. And exhaling to empty the belly and sink into your fold. Pressing into the feet, inhale all the way back up, reaching for the ceiling, tall stretch. Exhaling, hands to the center of the chest. And just once more, inhaling to reach your arms up tall. Exhaling to fold, hands to the floor. Inhale, halfway up, lengthening out through the torso, reach the heart forward. Exhaling to scoop the low belly in as you fold back down. Pressing through the feet, inhale, coming all the way back up, long stretch up towards the ceiling. And exhaling, hands to the center of the chest. And we'll inhale to reach the arms back up, tall stretch. Exhaling to fold, bringing the hands towards the floor. Inhale to come into a half lift, the ribs reaching forward. Exhaling to soften the right leg back. Take a big step back with the right foot. Bring your right knee down to the floor. And we'll maybe stay here for a moment, so you could take padding under your knee if you like. We'll inhale to reach the arms up into a low lunge. Just letting the shoulders settle, letting the hips settle. See if you can start to find a little bit more sensation in your low body, a little bit more aliveness in the low body. We'll squeeze the left foot, the right knee towards each other, hug the inner thighs in towards each other, draw in through the low belly to give the ribs a little bit more lift. Maybe you can find a gentle kind of back bend shape here as you just tip your ribs a little bit back. So you're spilling the ribs back. Maybe your arms come back kind of more alongside your ears or even behind the level of your ears. Good. And then as you exhale, you bring your hands to the floor. Straighten the right leg, press down through the hands, taking a careful step back to plank. And then from there, finding your way down onto your belly. You might bring the knees down first or lowering down one straight line. We'll root the tops of the feet. And then inhaling to come into cobra, reaching your ribs forward, shoulders drawing back. Exhaling to settle back down. And we'll do two more. Inhaling into a cobra, heart reaching forward. This is probably the last time I'm going to teach cobra for a really long time because I'm too pregnant for it. Exhaling to come back down. One more time, inhaling to lengthen out the belly, reaching the ribs forward. And exhaling to soften back down. And tucking your toes under, hugging in through the low belly. Inhaling to come back up, hands and knees or straight up to plank. Exhaling to take your hips up and back into downward dog. And then we'll just take a few moments to get comfy in this downward dog. So paying attention again to your upper body. Feel how the hands root into the floor. Fingers spread nice and wide. Roots through the inner edges of the hands. The shoulders spreading away from the ears. That wide space in your upper back. And carry that length and that strength through the line of the torso. So as you press forward and down through your hands and reaching your hips up really high, stretching out the center body. And then as the hips are reaching up, let the heels settle away from the hips so you can find a little bit more space down the backs of the legs. And with your next inhaling, reach your right leg up and back. And then exhale to draw the knee into the chest. Step your right foot forward towards your hands. You can bring your left knee down to the mat. Sit the hips nice and low. And then reaching your arms up towards the ceiling, coming into a low lunge. So again, beginning to build up some sensation in the low body. The right foot, the left knee can hug towards each other. The inner thighs draw in. The low belly lifts away from the right thigh. The heart pulls up. Maybe from there, with all of that stability, you can find a little bit more ease in just spilling your ribs back into a gentle back bend. And the arms come back a little bit, more space in your shoulders. And then with your next exhale, hands to the floor, stepping your left foot forward to meet the right. Inhaling halfway up, and exhaling to sink back down. And we'll press into the feet. Inhale to come all the way up, arms reaching tall. And exhaling the hands to the center of the chest. And we'll inhale to reach the arms back up, nice full stretch. Exhaling to fold, bringing the hands towards the floor. Inhaling halfway up, reaching your ribs forward. Exhaling to soften, stepping your left foot back. Again, we'll bring the left knee down to the mat. You can find padding once more if you like it. And then reach your arms up as you're ready into your low lunge. Same sense of stability in the low body, length and space in your upper body. Now as you exhale, bring your hands to the center of the chest, and then we'll just slowly start to twist, the left elbow coming towards the outside of your right knee. And press your palms together, lift your heart up in the direction of your thumbs. You might turn a little bit more as you're exhaling. And we'll see if we can keep that hug through the inner lines of the legs. If you feel quite steady here and you want to go a little bit farther, you might tuck your left toes under and then just slowly start to straighten out your left leg, and letting the hips stay square, reach your ribs forward, and continue turning your heart open towards the ceiling. Finding that kind of long spiraling quality in your spine, making sure you're really feeling the twist in your spine and not a turning of your hips. Maybe there's some warmth, some heat around your core. And then we'll slowly unwind, bringing the hands to the floor. It's straightening that left leg if it's not there already, stepping the right foot back into a plank. And now just moving through your own vinyasa. So that might be straight back to downward dog, or you might move through a flow, whatever works for you, following your own breath. Maybe we're exhaling to lower, inhaling into a back bend, exhaling into downward dog. And then we'll inhale to reach the left leg up and back. Exhale, draw the knee into the chest, step the left foot forward towards the hands. Placing your right knee down to the mat to start. Inhale to reach the arms up. And letting the shoulders settle, letting the hips settle. Find stability through the low body in order to give your upper body more height, more lift. And then as you exhale, you bring your hands to the center of the chest, reaching your heart forward, taking your right elbow towards the left knee. And you can just stay here, continuing to find the length in your spine each time you inhale, that gentle sense of turning every time you exhale. Maybe tucking your right toes under and then just really slowly beginning to straighten out the right leg. Noticing how the hug through the inner lines of the legs gives you a centering point so that you can soften your body into the twist. And looking for that twisting sensation in your spine while keeping your hips square. So maybe there's just a little bit of a squeezing quality around the center body. And we'll slowly unwind, bringing the hands to the floor. From here, stepping your right foot forward to meet the left. And inhale to come halfway up. And then exhaling to settle back down. Pressing into the feet, inhale all the way up, arms reaching tall. And exhaling the hands to the center of the chest. We'll inhale again to reach the arms up tall. Exhaling to fold forward, bringing the hands towards the floor. Inhaling halfway up, the ribs forward. Exhaling to soften, stepping your right foot back again. Again, we'll bring the right knee down to the mat. You can take padding under that right knee if you like. And then from here, letting the hips sink low, you can just stay up on your fingertips. We'll inhale to lengthen the belly, lift the chest. As you exhale, begin to draw your hips back. Find length in your left leg and flex your left foot. So some space through the back of the left leg. Inhale again to flow forward, letting the hips sink low, lengthening out through the belly, draw up through the chest. Exhale to draw your hips back, finding length in your left leg, left foot flexed. Again, inhale, coming forward, letting the hips settle. As you stretch long through the belly, look for space all the way into your right hip crease. And then exhaling to draw the hips back, lengthening out the left leg, flexing the left foot. And once more, we'll inhale to flow forward, and lifting the chest as the hips sink, and exhaling to draw the hips back. This time we'll stay here. You can walk your hands a little bit closer back towards you. Seeing if you can move straight back through your hips. So rather than sitting towards your right heel, think about lifting the sits bones even a little bit, kind of like that little tilting action that we do when we do cat and cow. So the cow shape to lift the sits bones. Hips continuing to reach back. From there, see if you can draw your heart farther forward, lengthening out the space of the belly. Keep your shoulders wide away from your ears. Lots of room around your neck. And then breathing into the length of the back, especially into the low back, seeing if you can find a quality of less roundness in your low back. And then as we stretch out through the center body, you might notice that we're accessing the chain of muscles that wrap around the back of the left leg and into the left hamstring, the left calf, so that we can also breathe sensation of softening into those areas. And seeing if we can just, again, investigate what each of those little sensations are, explore the sensation with your breath, see what's available to loosen or resolve in your body. Good, and then you can slowly bend your left knee, walk the hands forward. From here, you can wiggle your left foot over towards your right hand, and then settle the left knee down towards your left wrist. So we're coming into a pigeon shape. You can angle the knee a little bit more so that the left heel comes more towards your right hip, so we don't need to keep that 90-degree shape. And then just let the hips settle evenly towards the floor. If you notice that you're dumping off to one side, you might find some support to keep that left hip lifted. If this is not a great shape for your knee, then feel free to come down onto your back, and I'll demonstrate that variation in a moment. For everyone else, as we're here, we're seeing if we can keep the hips square, root through the top of your right foot, lengthen out through the belly, and then slowly start to reach your ribs forward and come down into your pigeon shape. So the forearms might come down to the floor, or you might come all the way down onto your forehead, and just being mindful of sensation in the knee, make sure the knee feels safe. If we need that variation on the back, just coming down onto your back, bending your right knee, crossing your left ankle just above the right knee, and then again towards you, so we get that same stretch without any of the weight of the body sitting on the stretch. Great, so I'm going to stay here for a little while. Lots of time to explore sensation, and maybe notice if you've come in too deep right away. It might make sense to back off towards a softer edge and then see if we can go more gently into the shape. I like to think of it as like getting into a hot bath, a bath that's a little bit too hot. Maybe we don't dump the body in right away, but rather we dip a toe in and let ourselves get accustomed to that temperature, and then we go in a little bit farther and a little bit farther, letting ourselves acclimatize along the way. And then maybe that's how we do this pose. And just keep resting into it at a pace that feels manageable. So that, again, we can be mindful of reacting to the sensation of tension or stress with the response of softness. And then we'll slowly walk the hands back in towards the left shin, or if you're on your back, you're finding your way towards a prone shape. From here, we're going to step back to plank. And again, we'll meet in downward dog. So you can, again, take a flow if that's what feels good for your body, way of fleshing it out, or simply move straight from plank back to downward dog. From here, we will inhale to reach the right leg up and back. Exhale to step your right foot towards the outside of your right hand. And then bring your left foot towards the outside of your left hand. And we'll sit into a low squat. So you can turn the feet outwards. If your heels are off the floor, that's fine. See if you can shift more weight towards the outer edges of the feet so that we get a lift in the arches of the feet. Park your elbows towards your inner knees. Place your palms together. Let your hips sink really low. And then see if you can start to lengthen up through the chest, or lifting the heart towards the thumbs. Getting the heads of the shoulders spread nice and wide. I'm just taking a few moments here to allow the gravity of your hips to settle down. And continue to reach up with your heart away from the earth. Nice long space in your neck. Tall reach up through the crown of your head. As much as you're able here, we're folding into the hip creases, into the knee creases. Good, and then bringing your hands back towards the floor. Lengthen out the legs a little bit. Maybe heel toe the feet in a little bit closer. Use an inhale to come into a half lift, reaching your heart forward. And then exhaling to soften down, we'll step the left foot back. Bring your left knee down to your mat. Again, find padding if you need it. Settle the hips. Bringing just your finger pads into the floor, so the palms are tented off of the floor. Keep letting the hips sink, and then as you inhale, see if you can lengthen out through the belly, lift the heart. You'll exhale to draw the hips back, begin to straighten your right leg, flexing your right foot. Inhale again to flow forward, hips low, heart high, stretching long through the belly. Exhale to draw the hips back, flexing that right foot. The more you pull the toes towards the shin, the more we find the stretch in the calf. And once more, inhaling to come forward. Again, as you let the hips settle and lift the heart, look for space all the way into your left hip crease. Exhale to draw the hips back, lengthening out the right leg. And one more time, inhaling to flow forward. And exhaling to draw back. We'll stay here. You can walk your hands back towards your hips so that you can comfortably reach with your hands towards the floor. Sending your hips straight back, so make sure you're not sitting down, but rather look instead for even that little bit of lift in the sits bones, a little bit of a tilt in the hips like we do in that cow shape. As the hips are drawing back, the heart is pulling forward, belly long, sides of the waist long, the low back as long as possible. And really stretching out that space of your torso. Again, the shoulders pull wide from the ears. Allow for some room around your neck. And just following your breath again into the path of your low back, around the back of the right hip, into the space of the back of the right leg. And see what you might discover or untangle with the comb of your breath. And the closer we can pay attention, the more fine-tuned or fine-toothed, rather, the comb of your breath becomes. Great. And then from here, we'll again bend the right knee, walk the hands forward. You can walk that right foot now over towards your left wrist, and then settle the right knee towards the right wrist. And once more, we can decrease the angle of the knee, so maybe your right foot comes more in towards the left hip. You scooch back a little bit through your left foot, root the top of the left foot. Again, option to come onto that variation on your back if that was more accessible for you. Otherwise, we're just making sure the hips are firmly, evenly settling towards the floor, that we're supporting the right hip if we need to. Find length in your belly, and then with that length, lowering down either onto your forearms or perhaps all the way onto your forehead. And again, just going step by step so that you have time to settle comfortably into each stage of the pose. There's no need to rush through this. And perhaps you can let each movement or each transformation unravel at the pace of your breathing. So nothing happens faster than your breath. And feel how the inhales continue to allow us to shift the ribs forward away from the hips. And as we stretch out through that space of the low back, there's more sensation of stretch through the outer right hip. The exhales take the gravity of the hips a little bit deeper towards the mat. But the shifts can be small. They don't have to be visible. Maybe we find changes that are something like the width of a hair. But because we stay here for a little while, the sum of those changes becomes significant. And we'll just take a few more really deep, sweet breaths here. And then we'll slowly walk the hands back in towards the right shin, tucking the left toes under, carefully lifting the hips so that we might come back to plank. Again, if you're in the variation on your back, you can meet us here or in downward dogs, and moving at your own pace, either straight to downward dog or through a flow. And then we'll inhale to reach the left leg up and back. Exhale to step the left foot towards the outside of the left hand, and then stepping the right foot towards the outside of the right hand. Settle the hips a little bit deeper, and we'll just see if we can put some pieces together. So mobility in the hips, letting the hips really settle into this deep squat, again, making sure that there's weight towards the outer edges of the feet. Nice long space in your spine. Now we're gonna reach the right arm in front of the right thin shin and place the right hand off to the right. And then we'll reach the left arm up and open and see if you can lean into a little bit of a twist. So finding some space in your shoulder, some space in your spine as you open the heart up towards the ceiling. Maybe there's a quality of lengthening through that part where the inner arm connects into the inner line of the torso. And as much as you're looking for that lean back through your left arm, remember to find the lengthening quality in the spine that allows us to drop the hips low and lift the heart high. So we're still going up with the chest as we lean it back. And then we'll gently switch sides. You can bring your left hand down, bring the left arm in front of your left shin, left hand off to the left. We'll inhale to reach the right arm up, leaning your right shoulder back. And seeing if you can settle into that twisting sensation without losing the lengthening quality of the spine. So we're still dropping the hips as much as you're able, growing up through the center of the chest. And the more we can get that lengthening out through the spine, the more space there might be for the twisting, for letting that right shoulder drop back, inner line of the right shoulder opening wide. And then exhaling to bring the right hand back down towards the floor. Straighten up the legs a little bit. You can wiggle the feet in. Inhaling to come halfway up. Exhaling to settle back down. Stepping your feet back. Moving perhaps once more through a flow if you like, or coming straight to downward dog. And then from downward dog, we'll come to child's pose. You can bring your knees down to the floor, either together or wide, whatever you like. Tops of the feet root, the big toes touching. Sit your hips to your heels. You can settle your torso towards your thighs or into the space between your thighs. And just take a few moments here. And drawing into the hip creases and into the knee creases. Feeling now how your breath balloons in your back body. So there's maybe a little bit more of a rounder quality in the spine here. You feel the breath in the backs of the shoulders, the mid-back, the low back, that wide area around the back of your hips. And then we'll inhale to come up to seated on the heels. And take your hips off to one side. Bring the legs forward. And then we'll just do a few kind of restorative shapes on the back, the few that we can do without needing to have props. So you can bring your hands around the backs of your thighs and slowly settle all the way onto your back body. And we'll take the legs straight forward. letting the shoulders and the hips connect to the earth. Just feel for a moment how the back body settles into the floor. And then from here, we'll just find a little bit of a side bend. So first taking your legs off to the right, so keeping both of your hips heavy to the floor. The left hip is still connected to the floor. You can just placing your legs over to, you might cross your left ankle over. And from here, we could reach the arms up alongside the ears. You might loop your right hand around your left wrist and just gently kind of tug over to the right, moving your arms a little bit over to the right to find sort of top half of a banana shape here. So the whole body turning into a banana curve, or maybe it's a smile. And we can notice that this stretch brings us into sensation through the whole body. So we feel the stretch along the outer line of the left leg, which might start around the area of the ankle or the outer shin, and travel up through the outer thigh, the outer left hip. And then we can move with that sensation through the left side waist, into the left shoulder, up the line of the left arm. If this is not a great shape for your shoulders, you can feel free to adjust in some way so that it's a good place for you to stay. And we'll be here for a little while. Looking for just enough sensation so that we feel that there's a small change occurring. More spaciousness, more of that broadening or spreading in your left side body. But not so much sensation that it's overwhelming or that we have a sense of adding stress. And the sensation guides us to be more gentle, more tender with ourselves. Noticing here the flow of your breath as it continues to move in and out of your body, how the breath continues to reach its fingers into those spaces between your side ribs, comb along the side waist, the length of the left leg, the length of the left arm. And then we'll slowly come back towards center. So you're bringing your arms and your legs back into that plumb line. You can take a nice long stretch here out through center. So toes reaching forward, fingers reaching back. And then we'll place the legs over to the left. And cross your right leg just over your left if you did that on the other side. And then maybe the arms also shifting over to the left. Maybe your left hand looping around your right wrist to give that little tug back on the arm. And seeing how we can travel with sensation through the right side body. Notice all the little spaces where we tug and stretch out, make space, unfold. Notice that most of that unfolding is a response to your breathing. And maybe the breath has a kind of capacity to internally massage the body. so that the deeper muscles become more supple. More inclined to move and change shape. And find comfort in whatever position we set the body in. And let's take a few more steady breaths here. And making your breath as sweet as possible, as nourishing as possible. And then we'll slowly come back to center. And again, just find that long stretch out along the center lines, toes reaching forward, fingers reaching back, tugging your body out from both ends. And then folding your knees into your chest and take your arms around your shins. You might rock a little bit side to side here. So just again, finding a massaging quality, this time of the back against the floor. And we'll just move into one last shape before we find Shavasana. If we do this without any support, maybe it's more of a yin experience. If we find a couple of cushions or blocks, you might have more of a restorative experience. So we're going to bring the soles of the feet together and let the knees fall out to the sides. And if you find that that's sort of stressful in the hips, then maybe it's useful to just gather whatever you can quickly find to place under your thighs or under your knees so that they're a little bit supported. It doesn't really matter what it is, a couple of books or some sofa cushions or, I don't know, your cat, whatever's within reach to place under your thighs. Otherwise, we're just letting the thighs settle in space. You might place your hands here to your inner thighs if that feels like a helpful sensation, or you could place a hand to your belly, hand to your heart, somewhere where you can sort of breathe into the cups of your hands and gather the tactile sensation of your hands. And use that to feel the breath moving in the body. And making sure that we're not asking the knees to go anywhere, but rather that we're letting the thigh bones be as heavy as possible in the hip sockets. And as the hips relax and as the thigh bones settle, then the knees follow. And perhaps you're enjoying specifically the room across the front of the body, space in the chest and the belly and the front of the pelvis and the inner lines of the legs. And hopefully, the practice allows us to come to a place where we feel safe in our bodies, where we feel at home in our bodies, so that we're allowing ourselves now to move even towards a little bit of vulnerability in the way that we split the front body open. Moving towards vulnerability allows us also to move towards blossoming. Maybe it's useful even to feel yourself as a plant here. We think that we're so different from plants, but we're not really. They are, in fact, our relations if we go back far enough. And so we can feel how the back body dives roots into the floor. We can feel the areas of the hips and the core and the shoulders, those kind of big structures in the body, the centering muscles in the body that give us stability, like a stem or a trunk. And then we can feel how all of our branches and all of our leaves unfurl into space. How there is so much room for us to become expansive. So much room for us to grow. Especially now that we have 6 feet of space around us always. There's lots of room for you to grow. Good. We'll slowly take the hands to the outer thighs, especially if you weren't using props. Go very slowly in gathering your thighs back towards center, coming back into that center seed. We'll bring the knees into the chest. A little bit of curling in the spine. Again, wrapping your arms around your shins, and you might just gently rock side to side here. Good. And then settling into Shavasana, you can gather whatever it is that you need to stay warm. So maybe finding yourself a blanket, cozying up, and let your legs come straight out on the floor. Or if that doesn't feel great for your low back, you might choose to place the soles of the feet to the floor and let the knees fall in together. Or if you have some kind of handy support, you might place a little bit of support under your knees so that the knees are just slightly bent. Your arms can rest by your sides. Allow your thumbs to turn outwards. Allow the inner lines of your arms to relax. And then we'll spend a few minutes here letting the body get really heavy, surrendering your whole weight to the pull of gravity. And maybe you notice that you're still carrying some heavy thing, some fear or some worry or some hurt that maybe just for at least a few moments you could set aside. Just for a few moments, allow yourself to put that weight down. So there's this nice little paradox that happens in Shavasana, that we let our bodies get heavy and we see if we can drop ourselves entirely into the embrace of the earth. And at the same time, as we unload some of the baggage that we're carrying around, maybe we also get lighter. And so we sink, but also we float. Perhaps for some moments here, you can settle into that space of equilibrium, and I'll let you know when we might find our way back into life. So slowly now beginning to invite conscious breath back into your body. And become fully aware of the sensation of that breath. Let that sensation of breath begin to move your fingers and your toes. And inhale to reach your arms up alongside your ears. Take a nice full stretch. And exhale to bend your knees, rolling onto your right side. And then slowly finding your way up to a comfortable seat. Arrive cross-legged shape or something that works for you. Just with your eyes closed here, taking a few more moments to be inside this feeling space in your body. Space of physical sensation. Or some kind of wordless, emotional or spiritual sensation. Just give yourself a little bit more time to remember how it feels to be fully present in your body, so that maybe we can carry that remembering into the rest of the day. And maybe that remembering keeps us a little bit more grounded amidst all of the noise. And then bringing your hands together at the center of your chest, and thank yourself for this practice. Namaste. Great. Thank you for joining us in the internet. Really looking forward to being able to do it in real life again. But for now, I'm glad that we're all here.